أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي فالحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ثم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, today I'm going to start our series off by giving you an introduction of what I'm trying to accomplish in this series along with you, and give you some breakdown of how the schedule is going to work from my end, from the presenter's end, and kind of the dynamics of how we're going to be able to interact with each other, inshallah ta'ala, in between the sessions. Some orientation points have already been given to you by Brother Abdullah, but now this is really about the course itself. What are you here to learn, and what are we here to discuss, inshallah? So for a long time, a lot of people are familiar with my work through YouTube and podcasts and other sources, Bayna TV even, and what they don't realize is the background information. On the background, Quranic studies is kind of like an ocean, and it's almost intimidating. Where do you even begin, right? You can't just, once you get involved in the study of the Quran, first you think maybe I should go through the whole thing in translation, and maybe that'll give me a good, bigger picture before I get involved in in-depth study. Or some people begin with like the 30th juz because that's familiar to people, so they start studying the 30th juz and whatever surahs are memorized, let me at least study those, right? So a lot of times, most of us, including myself, our studies of the Quran are really choppy. They're like little here, little there, and that's kind of how it goes throughout life. Now, I was really fortunate that I met a teacher, Dr. Abdul Samia, who used to teach a particular course on the Quran, and the purpose of the course was to kind of give you an overview of the Quran. If you think of the entire Quran as a giant map, then it would be like he would not teach you the whole map, he'd teach you the major milestones, like the major areas that you need to know, from one to the next to the next to the next. It kind of gives you, or even think of another visual he used to give that I like actually, is you have a massive, massive building, and I want to learn everything about this building, but he'd only teach you about the pillars that are holding this building up, right? So now once you understand the pillars, the main pieces of this building, then whatever you study, whatever room you're in, like whatever section of a building you're in, it's being held up by a couple of pillars, right? So it's kind of important to have a bigger picture, an overview of the entire Quran. And then when you have that, then whatever studies you do, you know where they all fit. Everything is kind of put in a perspective, right? So this course that he developed, or that he used to teach, selected courses, passages from the Quran, I went through it a couple of times. And after I had gone through it, I went through the Quran in its entirety, in brief tafsirs. Then I got involved in in-depth tafsir and literary studies and other kinds of studies. But what was really cool was this one study that I did, it actually put everything in perspective thereafter. Like everything I did afterwards in my studies of the Quran and still continue to do, it goes back to that fundamental course study. And ironically, I've never actually got to teach it. I've never actually taught that particular course. And I went back to it a few years later. Now it's been maybe 14, 15 years since I did that course for myself. And I went back to it and I decided to kind of review it for myself. Kind of go over that fundamental, those select passages again. And when I did, I realized that I want to make some changes to it for myself after all my studies. I wanted to make some enhancements and some changes. Now that passage, I called it Quran for Young Adults, and here's the reason. It's not just because this is a youth program, and I think it is beneficial for youth, and even preteens, I think it is beneficial for them. But at the same time, I think, inshallah, for a lot of young people here, you are students of the Quran for life. I'm hoping that, inshallah, after this course is done, you want to engage with the Book of Allah and learn more and more about it throughout your lives. So while you're young, if you get this base, and you kind of get this overview, then what you learn throughout life, it will be put in perspective. So now I'm going to tell you about the rationale. What are these passages or selections from the Quran that make up this course? It's not a select number of surahs. It's actually a select number of passages from the Quran. Some of them are entire surahs. Some of them are just paragraphs, you can say, or a selection of ayat that have been chosen. So now, just as for starters, when you study the Quran, because it's not in subject order, right? There are 114 surahs in the Quran, and they're not in subject order. It's not like I can tell you, here's the one subject of Surah Al-Baqarah. It's not possible. There's way too many things inside a surah. Actually, as a matter of fact, the surah is called a surah because the word surah it comes from Suwa, or Sawra even, is the outer walls of an ancient city. Like ancient cities used to have gigantic walls, so enemies couldn't just walk in. They used to have major gates that you can come in through. Those of you that play Assassin's Creed know what I'm talking about, right? You have these massive, massive walls outside that's impossible to scale. Now what's going on inside a city? Are there only one kind of building inside a city? Or one kind of people? Or one kind of street? Or one kind of economic activity? No. There's a ton of stuff happening inside a city. Isn't that true? There's all kinds of things happening within a city. And no two neighborhoods are the same. But yet everything inside the city is working with everything else. Like the merchant is supporting the house is supporting the carpenter is supporting the merchant, everything's supporting everything else. So you have government buildings, commercial buildings, residential buildings, you have farms or whatever you have, but all of it kind of interacts with everything else, right? Now, every city has a unique identity. Right? Every city has a unique identity. And when you leave that city, when you leave the outskirts of a city, you can immediately tell we're not in that place anymore. Like if you leave New York City, you can tell we're in Queens now. You can tell immediately. If you leave I don't know where the farmland ends, but if you leave Dallas, hopefully you'll realize there's no buildings anymore. And there's more cows. Okay, you can't say all of a sudden there are cows, but there are more cows now. The frequencies increase. So the idea is cities have a unique identity, right? Similarly, a surah is basically a bounding wall to I can't even call it a chapter of the Quran, really, right? That has a bunch of stuff in it that works with everything else. There's a number of things happening inside a surah. They're all interacting with each other. And what's interesting is also that, is it true if you've read even a little bit of Quran, is it true that sometimes you read something in a surah and you go to another surah and it's got similar subject matter? Or you're like, I've read this before? Now that's interesting because when you go to another city, like if you go from New York to Chicago or to London, there's different cities. But will you notice some things that remind you of another city? And hey, that's just like what we have back there. Oh, that's similar. Oh, that's interesting. You know what I'm saying? So there are these common elements within the environment of a surah, right? Now the Quran, like I said in the beginning, is not, you can't really call it a chapter because it's not organized by subject. It's by surah. And surahs are far more involved and far more complex than just having one subject. Okay. So you could say, for example, that I'm going to make a course, and this course is only going to be about certain kinds of surahs. That's not the case here. It's not a course that I made the selection based on certain kinds of surahs. Or maybe you could say, well, forget about the surahs, I'll just look at a subject. Like if I wanted to teach a course about women in the Quran, I do a search and kind of do an exhaustive analysis. Where are women mentioned in the Quran? Who are the women mentioned in the Quran? What are the laws and regulations that have to do with women or marriage or a motherhood or whatever in the Quran? I'd collect all of those ayat, and would all of those be in one place? No, they'd be all over the place. I'd pile them all together and take, okay, these are the selections in the Quran that might give me a picture about how women are talked about in the Quran, right? So what is the basis for which I am making these selections? The selections that I'm going to be sharing with you, inshallah, the outline will be given to you tomorrow. There's some final touches I want to put before I hand it over to you. And the packet that I give you, that's also the packet I hope you take notes in. So I'll put a brief translation of the ayat in there, and I'll leave some room between every few lines, so you can put some comments in there. I don't expect you to take exhaustive notes, but if there's some mental notes you might take here and there as we discuss the ayat, it'll be good for you, right? Now, these selections that I've made, they basically answer one simple question, or maybe a number of simple questions. So here's the first simple question that this course answers. What is the summary of the entire Quran? This is a summary of the entire Quran. That's the first question, okay? So it's not how does Allah talk about men or women or youth or the afterlife or faith. What does the Quran itself talk about? Give me a summary. That's the point of this course. That's the first point. The second point of this course is, what is the least that is expected of me from Allah? What's the most? What's the least? When you take a course in college or in high school or whatever, sometimes your professor or your teacher in school, they give you a syllabus. And they tell you if you don't pass at least 2 tests, or if you don't finish at least a couple of these assignments, or you don't score at least this much, you're not going to pass this time. This is the least I expect from you. If you want to survive this course, this and this and this. The teacher is not telling you how to get an A. He's simply telling you how not to get what? You can speak out. How not to get an F. That's the least you need to survive. See, there are places in the Quran where basically Allah talks about how to get an A. What are the highest places in Jannah? What's the best you can achieve? What's the most that you can do? Allah talks about that stuff. These passages that I've chosen, the point of them is not to teach you or remind myself of what's the most we can do. Actually, the point of it is to understand what is the least that we can do. What's the minimum that is expected from every Muslim? And that's kind of important to know, isn't it? Because if you don't have the right perspective, that can really mess you up. For example, there are students, and the student example is relevant because a lot of you are students. For example, there's a student who only cares about the extra credit assignment. He does a lot of extra credit assignments. But the actual homework and the actual exams, he skips. Is he going to pass? Doesn't make any sense. You're doing all this extracurricular work, you're doing all this over-the-top stuff, but the actual work that's expected from you, you're not doing. So you need to understand what work should you exhaust yourself doing if you really want to pass a class. Like some students get really shocked by a teacher. I put my term paper, I printed it on glossy paper, I printed it in color, I even put a clear plastic thingy on it. Yeah, but you worked so much on the cover, but there's nothing inside. It's like one page. You didn't do any actual work. I'm not going to grade you on the glossy plastic on the outside. Some of you have been in that situation, so you know what I'm talking about, right? The idea here is let's not be delusional. Let's not think to ourselves, well, I got a pretty good idea what Allah wants from me. I'll figure it out for myself. Because for a lot of us, including myself, as I was coming up, my idea of what Allah wants from me came kind of sort of from some khutbahs, kind of sort of from what I overheard my parents talking about, kind of sort of from, I'm too old for YouTube back in the day, so just from here and there you hear some stuff and you kind of build your own idea of what Allah wants from you, or what, you owe Allah. I wanted to give you in this course kind of a clear picture of what Allah expects from you, at the very least, from the Quran itself, from Allah's words Himself. Let Him speak for Himself. Okay, so that's the second point here. Now the third point, and this is getting a little more specific. According to a number of great scholars of the past, they actually believe that Surah Al-Asr, is the summary of the entire Quran. The entire Quran, 114 surahs, is entirely summarized inside one surah, and that one surah is Surah Al-Asr. Surah Al-Asr is long or short? It's super short, which is awesome, because now if I need to, in a nutshell, I could just tell you right now, the summary of the entire Quran is Surah Al-Asr, go home. But actually what we're going to do all over Ramadan is figure out what is Surah Al-Asr saying actually. And so I want to give you in this first session the relationship between Surah Al-Asr and the rest of the study. So you guys have a clear picture of that, inshallah. Then I'll talk to you a little bit about the sequencing of lessons and timings and things like that. So in Surah Al-Asr, which we'll talk about today, we'll get started today, inshallah. Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us the fact that all human beings are actually failing. I told you the course is about the least that you can do to pass, right? So Al-Asr, the point of it, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. The point of it is, no doubt about it, every single human being is immersed, is drowning in loss. And if you are in loss, meaning you're losing, means you're failing. So the surah begins with everybody's failing. Then Allah says illa, which means except. So everybody's going to fail except these people. These people. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. So who is the exception to failure? That's in the third and the final ayah of the surah. Many of you know it by heart. And in that surah, in that third ayah, it's not four kinds of people that are being talked about. It's one kind of person, or one group of people that's being talked about, but they accomplish four things. They're able to accomplish four things. And I'll give you a simple kind of outline of what those four things are. The first is that they believe. There's going to be four things, right? The first is what again? Call it out loud. That they believe. The second one is that they do good deeds. We'll keep it simple for now in translation too. They do good deeds. The third one is that they counsel each other, or they advise each other truthfully. They counsel each other truthfully. And finally, they counsel each other patiently. They counsel each other patiently. Once again, you tell me now, what was the first one? That they believe. The second one? That they do good deeds. The third one? They counsel each other truthfully. And the fourth one? They counsel each other patiently. Fourth thing. In other words, all human beings are going to fail. They're already in failure. The only people that are not going to be in failure is the people that accomplish these four things. Now, how is this surah a summary of the entire Quran? Any passage you study in the Quran will talk about one of these four things. Anywhere you go in the Quran, any surah, any juz, any passage, any ayah will come back to one of these four things. Either the surah or the ayah will tell you what to believe, or it will help you in your belief. It'll enhance your faith, it'll teach you something about your faith, it'll teach you something about the unseen that you could not have known unless you believe. So the first thing that you learn from the Quran is how to believe and what to believe. The second thing the Quran will tell you, you go anywhere in the Quran, either it will tell you about faith or it will tell you about some kind of what? Good deeds. Some kind of good deed, whether it has to do with prayer or charity or rights of parents or whatever it may be, but it has to do with some kind of good deed. Or you go all over the Quran and you'll find how people case studies of how people counseled each other, gave each other advice, and they were honest in giving advice. The biggest example of that is the prophets themselves. They gave other people advice, counsel. Believers gave counsel, right? That's the third kind of case. And the fourth case, what was the fourth case? Patiently. In other words, they didn't just give counsel and run out of steam. I said, forget this. I tried to give advice. They didn't want to hear it. So, you know what? Let Allah deal with them. They were patient with people and they stuck with it. And they held through. So there will be these four kinds of passages in the Quran. As a matter of fact, even when the Quran is talking about fighting or war, people fighting against each other and all of it, that's actually a kind of patience too, because it takes patience and perseverance to withstand the battlefield. And the soldiers are counseling each other, stick it through. Stand your ground. That's also a kind of counseling each other to patience, or counseling each other patiently. So these four are going to come up all over the Quran. All over the Quran. So if we understand the outline of the surah, then inshallah ta'ala the rest of the course will make sense. Now here's how we're going to organize this material. I hope I get to finish. Now the advertised time here is 11 to 2 o'clock. So I've taken 3 hours of your life a day. But that's at the most. I might end at 1 o'clock, I might or 1:30, or if really time needs me and I really need to finish, then I'll stretch it all the way to 2. Now don't take a mental break and say, oh, most of the time you'll be off at 1. Chances are most of the time you'll be off at 2. But don't sue me if I let you off at 1. You'll be happy. Okay. So I might some days go easy on you guys and get off at 1, because originally the schedule was supposed to be 11 to 1. I said, no. Let's stretch it to 2. Just so I make sure I finish everything I want to finish. I don't want to leave the course half off. I want to try to finish it. Okay? So that's a little bit of a mental note there. Now, there are going to be, inshallah, 6 sections of this course. Again, an outline. You'll see the outline tomorrow, but I want to verbally walk you through it a little bit. There are going to be 6 sections of this course. Section 1 is Surah Al-Asr. That makes sense? And section 1 also includes some other places in the Quran where Allah talks about the same 4 things. Now, I'm not going to say the 4 things again because you know them so well now, right? Or do you? What are those 4 things? They believe, they do good deeds, counsel truthfully, and counsel. Okay, so these 4 things are not just talked about in Surah Al-Asr. There are actually other places in the Quran where Allah talks about them too. So we're going to look at a few other passages where Allah in a different way brings up the same thing. Because for a good teacher, and Allah is the best of all teachers, for a good teacher, it's important to give reviews. To reinforce the same idea. And actually the best kinds of teachers give you a review without you even realizing there's a review. Like you review stuff and you don't even realize it's happened. Right? So that will happen in a few passages in the Quran. So that will be section 1. So Al-Asr and some related passages that are going to reinforce the overview. Then section 2 of this course is going to be about belief. That makes total sense, because once we do the overview, then we got to go piece by piece, right? And the first one was to believe. And there we're going to look at a few interesting things. Why do Muslims believe what they believe? What is the basis for their belief according to the Quran? Why are we Muslims anyway? We're going to ask the tough question. Why are we Muslims anyway? What do we believe about the afterlife? What do we believe about Allah? What do we believe about the Prophet? Like, we're going to look at a few fundamentals of belief. What's the benefit of believing anyway? What's the point of believing? How does it help you in your life? We're going to look at that entire discussion in section 2. Just Iman. You can call that section Iman, faith, belief. Okay. Section 3, anybody want to guess what the title will be? Good deeds. Good. Oh, you get the point. Good deeds. That's section 3. Section 1 was overview. Section 2 is belief. Section 3 is good deeds. And in good deeds, the organization is also, I think, interesting. Good deeds for yourself as a person. Good deeds within the scope of a family. Good deeds within the scope of a community. Good deeds within the scope of an ummah, as a nation, as a people. So good deeds at the individual level, all the way to the, you can think of it as a ripple effect, right? It's you personally, and then a little more expanded, your family, then a little more expanded, your community, then a little more expanded, your nation even, and then a little more expanded, the entire world. Like, what is the scope of good deeds that Allah talks about in the Quran? We'll get a picture of that in this discussion on good deeds. What's section 4? Counseling truthfully. Counseling truthfully. We're going to look at the Prophet's career, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how did he counsel truthfully? What's the beginning and end? What to expect when you counsel truthfully? What are the challenges that are going to come your way? How do you counsel truthfully? What does it mean? So different passages in the Quran that deal with the reality of counseling truthfully, so we have an idea of what that means for us. And finally, the fifth, well not finally, but the fifth section, counseling patiently, the idea of sabr. What does sabr mean? How do you give sabr? How do you counsel with sabr? And how do you counsel to sabr? We're going to discuss that in detail. Some passages from the Quran are selected for that particular purpose. And finally, the last section, section 6. What was section 1? Surah Al-Asr and related passages, right? Section 6 is actually, hopefully we get to do it in its entirety. I'm worried because it takes some time to do it. But section 6 is actually surah number 57. The whole section is just one surah, a walkthrough of an entire surah. Surah number 57, Surah Al-Hadid. Surah Al-Hadid. Surah Al-Hadid because one of my late teachers, Dr. Sarh, rahimahullah, used to say, Surah Al-Asr is the seed. If Surah Al-Asr is the seed, then Surah Al-Hadid is the flower that blooms from it. In other words, Surah Al-Hadid is actually, a comprehensive look at all of the lessons of Surah Al-Asr, tying everything together. Right? So if we want to conclude, we're really going back to the basics. Again, one of the most beautiful ways to go back to the basics is Surah Al-Hadid. So this is the outline of the course that we're going to be embarking upon. You guys doing good so far? Okay, I'll try to keep track of time. We started today at 11:15. Tomorrow on, inshallah, we'll start at 11. No more announcements and no more oversleeping. I'm still in jet lag from Malaysia. But I think I'm okay now. I think I'm okay, inshallah. But I'm going to try to go for no more than an hour. I'll try to do between 40 minutes to an hour at a time. Give you guys 10 minutes off to do whatever it is you do, and then come back. You can't really eat anything, so again, no point of giving you a long break. Or you're going to take a snack break. You can't. So we'll take 10 minutes off, do whatever it is we do, and then come back and get back to work, inshallah. Okay? So now let's begin. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. There are 3 ayat in this surah. There are 3 ayat in this surah. And hopefully when we discuss faith, the section on faith, I'll tell you about the word ayah. What does ayah actually mean? I absolutely disagree with the translation verse. I strongly oppose to the idea of calling an ayah a verse. We'll talk about that in detail some other time. For now, this surah is made up of how many? 3 ayahs. But, interestingly enough, these 3 ayahs are actually still just one sentence. 3 ayahs, but all 3 put together only make one sentence. It's not 3 sentences. It's one sentence. Which gives you kind of a clue that an ayah is not the same as a sentence, is it? Because if an ayah was the same as a sentence, there'd be 3 sentences in here. They're not. There's one sentence in here. Okay? Wal-asr, you can think of it as wal-asr, exclamation. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Now, in this ayah, or in these ayah, Allah began with the words wal-asr, which commonly translated, you guys have some translations in front of you. What does it say in translation? Call it out. It's surah number 103. By time? By time? By the ages? That's a number of different translations. By time, by the ages. We don't do this in English much anymore. In Old English, we used to do it if you're really into watching like ancient adventure flicks or something. So some guy being overly dramatic says, "By the king," or whatever. We don't really use "by" like that anymore. The idea of one asr is Allah taking an oath, or Allah taking a swear. But I mean, guys, please listen carefully. I don't mean swear as in foul language. Like the way, man, that guy was swearing a lot. That's not what I mean here. Like, I swear by time. Like a contemporary translation would be, I swear by time. Okay, so Allah swears sometimes in the Quran. He swears by different kinds of things. Now I want you to first understand why is it that Allah swears. It's a brief overview of why is it that Allah swears by different kinds of things in the Quran. You see, in any language, the purpose of swearing, of saying, I swear by Allah, I swear by whatever, the purpose of it, or the purposes of it are a few. The first purpose of it is you're angry. Like you're hanging out among friends, one guy keeps getting made fun of, and he goes, I swear guys, if you don't stop. And he says, I swear because he's what? He's angry. So you can say, I swear by whatever, or I swear to God, when you're angry. Another reason you could swear is because you're not being believed. You're not being believed. You come late to work, your boss says, why are you late 45 minutes? Traffic. Traffic. No, I swear, there's traffic. So when you say, I swear, you're suggesting that your boss is having a hard time believing you, so you have to reinforce what you're going to say with, I swear. You understand? So, firstly, you swear because you're angry. Second, because you're not being believed. You're not being believed. And related to that is actually people in many cultures, including ours, over here, we swear when we're in court. I swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, most of the truth, so help me God. Right? So you swear, why? Because you're going to testify. So a person swears when they're going to testify. That's the third scenario. So what are the three scenarios again? Repeat them for me. Anger, when you're not being believed, and when you're going to testify. Now this is generally in Urdu or in Arabic or in Malay or whatever language people swear for these reasons. Okay? But in Arabic, in Old Arabic, there were a couple of additional reasons. In Old Arabic, one additional reason was if you're in a crowd and people aren't paying attention and you want to get their attention, then you swear by something. And you swear by something that will actually get their attention. So whatever you swear by, the purpose of it is to grab people's attention. So for example, if there's a bunch of people, they're in the marketplace and they're just chilling, doing whatever, and this guy wants to say, I need to make an announcement. Now they don't do like, nowadays, excuse me, hello, can I say something? Can I say? No, no. They don't have time for that. They don't have to, like the poor guy after the Jummah prayer is done, the guy who tries to make the announcements that nobody ever listens to. Like, excuse me, brother, please don't leave, please stay, just come on, let me just tell you something about what's happening on Wednesday. Nobody cares about Wednesday, nobody's listening, but he still finishes all of his announcements, right? People start, as soon as people see his face, they start running towards the door. He doesn't know how to grab people's attention. He tries miserably every week for years, 20 years in a row. You know, our children will see him make failed announcements, but he won't give up. May Allah reward him, right? Now that guy doesn't know how to grab people's attention, but how does Allah grab, or how did the Arabs grab people's attention? They swore by something. So I'll give you a scenario. People are hanging out, they're just shopping or whatever, people are busy, there's ruckus, there's noise. And this guy goes up there on top of a mountain and says, Wa sabaha, I swear by the morning. And everybody stops. It's not like now it's just crazy nut job, swear by the morning. But actually, what that meant was, something really serious is about to go down at what time? In the morning. And people would think, oh my God, is an enemy tribe attacking us in the morning? Are we going to be invaded in the morning? Is there a tornado that's heading this way and it'll reach here by morning? Like the worst thoughts would cross people's mind. What's going down in the morning? I better listen. You understand? So this was kind of their way of grabbing attention. This is not done in most languages. Like, unless you're weird, you don't normally do that. You don't grab people's attention by swearing by stuff. Okay? But they did do that in Arab culture back in the day. Okay? And finally, there's a specific reason why it's used in the Quran. So I've gone through kind of a mental checklist, but it's quick and I need you to make the distinction. The first three reasons I gave you could be in any language. Those three reasons were either you're angry, or you're not being believed, or you're testifying in court. That would be true of English, or Spanish, or German, or Urdu, or whatever. That's you take an oath in any language, and it's also true of Arabic. Additionally, there's something particular about Arabic that other cultures don't have. What is that when they take an oath? They are grabbing your attention. They're trying to get you to listen to something they're about to say. Okay? Like this is what they're saying, yo, listen up! This is their way of doing that. Okay? Then finally, in the Quran, this is not even something the Arabs did, this is something specifically the Quran did. Okay, so the fifth element here is something unique to the Quran that's never been done before. The Quran is unique in many ways, this is one of them. Allah will swear by something in order to give you evidence. In order to give you evidence. And also in order to describe a witness. Two things. In order to give you evidence or in order to describe a witness. Now when do you give evidence? When you're going to make a point. Like if I make a claim before you, if I say something, then I have to prove it with evidence, right? So Allah is going to say something, but before He even says it, He will give you evidence. Right? Alright. I have to? Fine. Guys, gotta take a break.
So, Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thumma amma ba'd wal asri inna al-insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. So, I was talking to you a little bit about Al-Asr. Let's see how good your recollection is. What are the 3 reasons why people take swears generally? Anger. I heard anger. Not being believed. Third? Testifying. Okay, the Arabs in particular had this strange addition to that. Grabbing people's attention. And the Quran has a 5th addition to that, which I didn't describe yet, but at least I've given you the definition. What's that? Bringing something, describing a witness, and giving evidence. So let me tell you how that works. If Allah says, "Wal Asr," I swear by time, human beings are in loss. I'm giving you an elaborate translation yet. This is a simple one. I swear by time, human beings are in loss. Let's walk through all 5. The first one means Allah is possibly angry. When He's saying this, He's possibly angry. Another implication is He's swearing by time because, what's the second one? He's not being believed. When He says people are in trouble, human beings are in loss, it is as though people are not taking that seriously enough. People hear it, but they don't really care. They act like it's not a big deal. So He says it using wal asr to suggest people are not taking this matter seriously. What's the third case? Allah is testifying. Allah Himself is testifying that human beings are in loss. And we'll see testimony later on in the 5th. It'll become clearer. The 4th element is Allah is grabbing your attention by something that you should, and it's supposed to be something that grabs your attention, and that thing is time itself. It's time itself that's supposed to grab your attention. When somebody says, "Hey, time," you look at your watch, like, I'm running out of time. I only have 40 minutes for this session. I gotta get there, I gotta get here. The idea of time is a sense of urgency, isn't it? Get a note of time, you're in trouble. You don't have a lot of time. But the Quranic one is the most powerful, the final usage. And that final usage is, Allah will take whatever He swears by, in this case He swore by time, and He will make that a witness. He will bring it forward as a witness to a reality. What is the reality? Human beings are in loss. You know what that means? That means time, as in history, is the greatest witness that human beings have been in loss. Time has seen. Imagine an old man who has seen a lot of things in his life, right? And he sees, when he was younger, he had friends, and his friends made some bad decisions, and then they saw the consequences of those decisions. As he got older, he saw some other young people who made similar bad decisions, and similar things happened to them. And he got older, he saw even other young people, another generation of people that made similar bad decisions, and similar bad things happened to them. In other words, that old man has been witness to a lot of the same thing, right? He'll say, "I've seen this 100 times before. This isn't the first time." So we go to people with experience for their advice, because your situation, whatever you're going through, chances are they've known someone or they've seen your situation before, and they know how it plays out, right? So they're an old witness. Now imagine time itself is an old guy sitting on the sidelines watching human beings play out the drama of their lives over and over and over again. Have there been people like us 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago? Were there young men before, or young women before? Did they have desires? Did they want to live their lives? Did they want to have a nice place to live and have money and wealth? Did they have, did they have these things? Sure. Did they have trials in their life and difficulties like you and I have? Sure. And who's been watching all of these over and over again? One of the witnesses Allah created is time. Time's been watching this over and over again. And if you ask time, have human beings, you've seen a lot of human beings, time. How have we done? How are we doing? Overall, have human beings done well for themselves? Time says what? Human beings are just in loss, man. They're just in loss. Nations come and they think they're doing okay, they're doing amazing, and they disobey Allah and they get destroyed. People get wealth and they go crazy. People come into a little bit of money and they lose all sense of what's right and wrong. Young man hits puberty and he thinks he owns the world and he can talk to his parents however he wants. Girl feels like, she's an adult now. She can dress how she wants and talk how she wants and hang out with who she wants, and you can't control my friends and all of it, And then they crash and burn. Human beings have been in loss over and over, and time's seen it once and twice and thrice. It's been a witness. Allah is calling it as a witness. And as a matter of fact, in your personal life, time is a witness. Whatever you've gone through in life, Allah created the time itself as one of the witnesses of what you've done in your life. The lies you've made, the mistakes you've made, the moments you regret, the decisions you made you wish you didn't make. The things you've done in secret, time's always been there witnessing. And as a matter of fact, you might say, they say this delusional thing to young people. You have your whole life ahead of you. You have your whole life ahead of you. Who said you have your whole life ahead of you? Who knows how long they're going to live? If you ever get a chance, go visit a graveyard. You'll notice something remarkable. As you're walking past the gravestones, some say born 1909, died 1999. Some say born 2011, died 2011. Some say born 2001, died 2014. They all have different dates of birth and different dates of death. And are they all old people in the graveyard? No. Some people had a lot of time on this earth, and other people didn't have a lot of time on this earth. And did any of them know how long they're going to be around? Nope. None of us know. None of us know, which means all of us have to have a sense of urgency and the time that we've already wasted. I don't know if I only have one day left. And if I only had one day left, I look back and say, man, I could have done so much more. I could have done so much more with my time. I was sitting there hours and hours playing stupid video games. I could have done so much more. My life could have meant so much more. You have this regret over what's happened in the past. And as a matter of fact, the truth of it is, every single one of us, if we look back at our life, if we look back at the life, even those of you that have had a brief life thus far, you haven't lived many, many years, you look back and you can say, I could have done better. I could have done better. There's ways I could have not have wasted my time. Or I wish I didn't spend my time doing what really doesn't amount to much, and doing more of what actually means something, doing something that's actually productive. So time itself is witness for myself personally. I look back at my spent time and I regret that I have in fact been in loss. Then I told you the last one is not just calling time as a witness, but also using time as what? As evidence. Remember I talked about evidence? So that's probably the ultimate discussion in all of this. And that is the greatest proof that you and I, every single human being, is in loss, is actually time. Time is the ultimate proof. Somebody says, prove to me that I'm in loss. Prove to me that I'm in loss. Loss means you lose something, and true loss means you lose something and you can't get it back. Sometimes you lose money, but can you get it back? Sure. Sometimes you lose a game, but can you win again? Yeah, you could come back. Or you're losing through the course of a game and you can make a comeback. Not if you're the Heat, but but you could technically make a comeback. There's possibility. You could lose money in business and gain it back. Right? You could lose points in your class, with your teacher, but you can earn them back. Maybe he gives you an extra credit assignment or whatever and you make it up. But there's one thing you and I lose. It doesn't matter if you're old or young, if you're a baby or you're 90 years old, you're a man or a woman, you're rich or poor. It doesn't matter who you are. There's one thing you and I are losing all the time, and we will never get it back. What's that? Time. I've lost 10 a.m. It's never coming back. 10 a.m. today will never come back again. Once I lose today, today is not coming back. It's gone forever. It is a loss that cannot be recovered. And every single day, the time that I lose increases. I am actually constantly losing. The ultimate proof of loss is time. And people who think they're on top of the world because they have money, or because they have health, or because they have beauty, or because they have status, because they're popular, whatever they think they have that makes them superior to others. Guess what? Those things, you can hold on to them as long as you want. But you know what you can't hold on to is time. So even if you're really beautiful and you're really good looking, 40 years from now, you're going to be wrinkly yourself and balding and wearing thick glasses and all of it. 70 years from now, you might not even be able to walk straight. You might have a cane. Your face will be all pruny, a lot like when you were a baby. It's going to happen. You can have all the money in the world, but time will actually take so much away from you that even if you have the wealth, and I've seen this, people that are extremely, ridiculously wealthy and live in incredible mansions, but they're so old and they're so weak, they can't even go up the stairs. They have a beautiful balcony view, but they're afraid to go to the balcony because they might get sick from the wind. Just the wind. You can't go out. Gorgeous swimming pool in the back that they only pay maintenance on and look at. They can't go in it. Amazing big screen TV. They don't have the eyesight to see it anymore. Surround sound, but their ears are deaf. Time took it away. You and I would walk into their mansion, man, this place is nice. Whew, look at that, look at this, look at that. And they used to be like that at one point. But when time passed through, all of that lost value. For to them, none of that means anything. And a time will come where none of it means anything to you. And actually, they'll look at you going, man, look at that TV, look at that swimming pool, look at this view, look at this, look at that. And they'll be like, yeah, I used to be like that. There was a time when I was dumb like you. Then I realized none of this actually means anything. I was obsessed with the wrong things. This is time as evidence. Time is evidence, the ultimate evidence that all human beings are immersed constantly in loss. Now, in this ayah, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ, a few other realities before we move on. First, the use of the word inna. Inna is used in Arabic when you say, an easy English translation would be no doubt. Inna would be no doubt about it, without a doubt, okay? Or for sure. It is used, they say in Arabic, لِإِزَالَةِ الشَّكِّ. What that means is to remove any doubt that you might have. Allah already swore to remove your doubts. Remember, you take an oath when you're not being believed? But on top of that, He says, for sure, I am telling you. Al-insan. Al-insan, each and every human being. In other words, He didn't say, Inna nasa lafi khusr. If you know the meaning of the word nas, you know what nas means? People. He said, Al-insan. Al-insan actually means the human being, each individual human being. In other words, Allah did not say, nations are in loss, or humanity is in loss. He said, each individual human being is in loss. In other words, when you come to this ayah, you don't think of anyone else. You think of just yourself. You think of just yourself. You forget about the world around you. It's just you and I personally are in loss. Look, in this world, Allah describes, in another place in the Quran, خَوَّلْنَاكُمْ. It's beautiful words. Allah describes that we had wrapped you up. You know what that means? Allah had wrapped you up. When you were inside your mom, her belly wrapped you up. When you came out of your mom, a towel or a blanket wrapped you up. Then clothes wrap you up. Then beyond the clothes, your parents surround you. Beyond the parents, your home wraps you up. Your home surrounds you. Your neighborhood surrounds you. Your friends surround you. We are wrapped up. We are surrounded by different kinds of things. Judgment Day comes and Allah says literally He's peeling all of the things you were surrounded by. The clothes, the parents, the friends, the family, the house, the world you lived in, all of those peels are removed. As a matter of fact, even this body is a kind of a wrapper. Because the real us, the ruh that Allah created, the real you and me is deep inside of us and it's wrapped in this body. I don't keep up with new cartoons anymore, so I don't know, but there must be some cartoon show that has a guy inside a giant robot. Any show you can think of? Because I think of like 90s shows like Gundam Fighters, or like Power Rangers. I'm really out of touch. Give me something new. Come on, I need to be up to date. They still have Gundam Fighters? New Gundams, okay. Well, then you get the idea. There's this machine, but it's being controlled by what? A guy inside. I'll ask you the same question my teacher asked me a long time ago. My teacher asked me one time, weird, we're sitting studying Arabic, and he goes, hey Nouman, where are you? And I was like, Dr. Saab, I'm right here. He goes, point to yourself. And I said, duh. And he goes, no, you're pointing to your chest. Point to yourself. And what does he mean, point to myself? And he said, no, you're pointing to your brain. Point to yourself. So I said, okay, I got this. Ta-da! He said, you're pointing to your body. Point to yourself. And I just sat there confused, like, this is who I am. This is actually not who I am. There's something inside of me that Allah put inside of me when I was still inside the stomach of my mother. That is actually who Nouman is. This body will die. This body is going to die. It's going to be inside a grave. It's going to be rotting. But I will actually still be alive. I'll still be alive. That's called my ruh. Ruh. I'm not going to call it my soul or my spirit. I'm just going to call it my what? Ruh. If you want to write it in English, R-U-H. It's something Allah created. Each one of you is actually a ruh. You were created a long time before you ever came in this earth. A long time before. And the angel brought you into the belly of your mother, into the body that Allah was creating. This body is actually not you. This body is just something you are wrapped up in. This is just a package Allah gave you. And this package will go, but you will be around still. And then He will repackage this body when the akhirah comes. When the afterlife comes, He'll take you out, He'll take the real you out, and wrap you up in a new body again. You know? We're going to be brought up anew. So this idea of us being inside, that is we're in that sense, we're alone. I want you to understand the purpose of this ayah is to internalize a really scary fact. Doesn't matter how many friends you're surrounded by, doesn't matter how much money you're surrounded by, how much family you're surrounded by, each and every one of us at the end of the day is one ruh and it's alone. It's just by itself. And that's how it's going to be on Judgment Day. كُلُّهُمْ أَتِيهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَرْدًا. Everyone will come before Allah one by one, just alone, fardan, just alone. You're not going to be with anybody else. This reality is probably one of the most important. It's a dark reality, but it's one of the most important realities that young people and human beings have to know. Because, I'll tell you why, when you are around friends, when you are around other people, are you exactly as you are when you're by yourself? No. When you're around others, it impacts how you dress, it impacts how you speak, it impacts how you behave, for the better or for worse. But at the end of the day, you are truly yourself when you are by yourself. When nobody else is around, you are truly yourself. And people, if you're always around other people, right, you're constantly kind of putting up a front to deal with certain kinds of people. Like, if, for example, you're being yourself, hanging out with your friends or whatever, teacher walks into the class, your behavior changes, doesn't it? It's impacted by the presence of others, right? The idea here is you have to first realize who you truly are. And you, doesn't matter how much other people think you're successful or you're doing great or everything's fine, you individually have to internalize that you are in loss. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says. That's a fact. You're losing time. You're losing every minute. You're losing every hour. This is إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. Now a little bit about fi khusr. I've given this imagery before many times. It's popularized on YouTube. But I'll give you a brief version of it. Imagine you're drowning. If you're drowning and passed out, there's a problem. Because if you're drowning and unconscious, there's no way you're going to survive. The first thing you're going to need in order to survive this mess is you need to what? You need to wake up. And if you wake up and say, well, this is just a nightmare, I'm going to go back to sleep, then you're dead. You have to wake up and accept the reality. You have to truly believe that you are in loss. That's why the word in is used. Every human being is drowning in loss, except those who what? Believe. The first thing to believe is that you're actually drowning. If you don't believe that you're drowning, you're not going to do anything. You're going to die. Now, once you do believe that you're drowning, what will you do next? Even if you whether you know how to swim or not, you're going to do something. Do something. Flap your arms if you don't know how to swim. Do something. In other words, you will take action. What was the next condition of saving yourself? وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. They do good deeds, remember? They do something. As you try to save yourself, you realize that there's some loved ones that are right down there sleeping. They're tied to you. What do you have to do now? Just save yourself and say, well, I didn't like my cousin that much anyway. You try to wake them up, don't you? And you try to wake them up and let them know that they are also what? Drowning. And they also have to try to save themselves. Isn't that true? And if one gets tired, the other can help him. If the other gets tired, the first one can help him. So you counsel them truthfully. You counsel them, hey, blah, 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 let's go. Now you two are trying to save yourselves. You're helping each other. And you start giving up. Man, I don't know if I'll make it to the surface. If you start giving up, who's there? Your cousin's there. Hey, come on, don't give up. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. You're counseling each other to what? Patience. You're counseling each other patiently. You're encouraging each other patiently. Those 4 conditions actually have to do with the imagery of loss. If you're drowning, then these are the 4 things you'd need. If you're in loss, these are the 4 things you'd need. But something about khusr I didn't get to mention that I really want to make sure you understand. There are 3 words in Arabic, or in the Quran rather, for loss. There's khusr, there's khasar, and there's khusran. There are 3 different words for loss. Khusr, khasar, and khusran. And interestingly, the least loss is khusr, the one mentioned here. It's a mercy of Allah. Allah did not say every single human being is in the worst possible kind of loss. That would have been khusran, terrible loss. Or Allah didn't say every human being is in a kind of loss that only increases. That would have been khasar. Innal insana lafi khasar. See, the words of the Quran are perfect. Allah didn't say khusran, which is the worst possible loss. Allah didn't say khasar, which is loss that keeps increasing. Allah said khusr, which means some loss. Every human being is in some loss. Some more than others. Some are in more loss than others. At the end of the day, we're all losing. There's no exception to that. But some people can overcome those losses with the exception of the ayat that are coming. This is Al-Asr, innal insana lafi khusr. The entire point of this ayah is all human beings have to have a sense of urgency. I have to make some changes in my life because I'm drowning. And I have to stop pretending that things are okay. The Quran has its own definition of, and this is the last piece of this introduction of Al-Asr, innal insana lafi khusr. Then we'll talk about the last 4 ayat, inshallah, in some depth. But in this last piece, what I want to share with you is the Quran's definition of success and failure. The Quran's unique definition of success and failure is different from how you and I think of success and failure. And I've done this experiment with kids back in the day when I used to teach kids. We're driving on a road trip, you see a homeless guy on the street, like sleeping in a cardboard box. Hey guys, do you think that guy's successful? Do you think that guy's successful? What is pretty much every child going to say? No. We're driving further and you see a beautiful mansion. Clearly not in Texas because it's at the ocean front. Right? There's this beautiful mansion at the ocean. And you look at it and say, hey guys, the guy who lives in here, you think he's successful? There's a couple of fancy cars parked outside, maybe an Italian and a German car. It's a gorgeous house, just absolutely epic place. You can see the basketball court in the back and a swimming pool overlooking the ocean. The guy lives in here, successful, you think? And what are they going to say? Yeah, pretty successful. In other words, it's not just because those kids are bad kids or they don't really know Islam or whatever. Human beings generally, when we look at some things, we say that's success. And we look at some other things and we look at that as Failure. Somebody who graduated from school is successful. Somebody who dropped out is a failure. Somebody who got a job is successful. Somebody who didn't get a job is a failure. Somebody whose business took off is successful. Somebody whose business crashed is a failure. The guy who won the elections is a success. The guy who lost the elections is a failure. The Spurs are a success. The Heat are a failure. That's how we look at success and failure, isn't it? Now, take that a step further. In the Quran, Allah talks about Ibrahim alayhi salam. You know this prophet's name? Ibrahim alayhi salam. Allah describes that he got kicked out of his house. He was homeless. Is Ibrahim alayhi salam one of the greatest examples of success in human history? But he's homeless. But when you looked at someone homeless, the immediate thought that you had was what? That they are a failure. But the Quran is describing a homeless person as the ultimate success. With the greatest success, as a matter of fact. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, was homeless for a couple of years. He had to live in a cave. He was exiled. He was deported. Somebody being deported from their country, would you call that a success? That's insane. But he's the greatest success humanity's ever seen. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. On the other hand, you have the guy that if they had TV crews back in the day, then they would be doing a celebrity cribs show on his house. It's Fir'aun. He had the biggest house ever. The most elaborate house. Thousands of construction workers dedicated to building his house, his castle. Anybody would look at that back in the day and say, that's success. But what does the Quran teach us about Fir'aun? To his failure. Allah talks to us about Qarun. Qarun, interesting example. Qarun is a guy that had vaults. Like he had so much money, he had to have vaults. And those vaults used to have massive gates. So they're underground vaults with the lid for a manhole on the street. They're kind of heavy. But this massive vault, and you couldn't just lift it. He had to hire a group of guys, like muscle men, that would have to lift the gates to his vault. That's how heavy those vaults were. That's how Allah describes his wealth. And he describes him as one of the worst examples of failure. The Quran describes it. In other words, and by the way, the Quran is not saying that being poor is a success and being wealthy is a failure. That's not true either. That's not true either. Allah does in the Quran talk about people that are wealthy and powerful and are successful. He talks about that too. But what the Quran is saying then, what its definition is then, is that true in the essence of the word, money, power, wealth, none of these things actually have anything to do with success. And not having money, not having power, none of that actually has anything to do with failure. If you have it, like for example, the point is if you have money, it's possible that you're a success, but it's also possible that you're a failure. If you don't have money, it's possible that you're a success, and it's also possible that you're a failure. That doesn't determine whether or not you're a success or failure. It has nothing to do with it. As a matter of fact, the only thing that determines success or failure is about losing, isn't it? But what is the ultimate loss according to the surah? Time. So if you're not using your time wisely, then you're a failure. And if you're using your time wisely, then you are a success. That's it. That's all there is to it. If you have a lot of money, but you're using your time wisely, then you're a success. If you have a lot of money and you're not using your time wisely, you're a failure. Actually, all of it boils down to how you use your time. And in that sense, everything we're going to discuss from here on is really about how you're going to use your time for the rest of your life. It's really what it's about, this entire discussion. The other beautiful thing here in this ayah, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ, what I'd like you to understand is, as the ayat go, this is the last piece, and I'll give you your break. I think, Mihrab, 40 minutes or we're almost there. Let me know. 13? I won't need all 13, but it's okay. Okay. The other thing I want you to know about these ayat is that just because Allah says you are in loss doesn't mean you are in total loss. Human beings are in loss, but that does not mean that they are in total loss. In other words, the Quran is not preaching depression. Oh, I'm losing anyway. That's not the Quran's message. As a matter of fact, human beings, they're going to lose no matter what. They're going to lose time no matter what. But even those who are losing time, if they can just have these 4 qualities, they can become successful. And these qualities are not difficult to have. As a matter of fact, some people think that because Allah says this, that we should not be enjoying our life in this world. The only thing that matters is Jannah. Right now is a time to be sad and depressed and constantly look at our watch. And just say, I have no time left. I have no time left. It's not the reality of it. Allah says in Surah Al-A'raf, وَجَعَلْنَا لَكُمْ فِيهَا مَعَايِشْ قَلِيلًا مَا تَشْكُرُونَ. Allah says, Allah put on this earth for you things that you can enjoy. Ma'ayish, to live well, to eat well, to enjoy good food, to dress nicely, to live in a nice place, to get to earn a permissible income, to enjoy your life. Allah put those things here for you. لَكُمْ قَلِيلًا مَا تَشْكُرُونَ. How little gratitude you people show. In other words, I'll give you things to enjoy, but why would Allah give you things to enjoy? So you could be, fill in the blank, so you could be grateful. If you can be grateful, truly grateful for what Allah has given you, then there's nothing wrong with what you have. Just be grateful. And the form, by the way, that has to do with our good deeds. You remember good deeds is going to come up? Well, a good deed in response to receiving Allah's gifts, what's the ultimate good deed? Being grateful. And if you are grateful, Allah has another formula in the Quran. He says, وَلَا إِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If in fact you do become grateful, I swear to it, I will increase you and increase you and increase you and increase you. In other words, if you want more stuff, just be grateful. Allah promises He'll give more. And not just stuff. He'll give you everything more. He'll give you more knowledge, more wisdom, more blessing in your time, more guidance, better use of your life. He'll counsel you through everything you want to work out in your life. Just be grateful. So what I'm trying to say as I conclude is, just because Allah is saying humanity, no doubt, every single human being, no doubt, is actually drowning in loss, does not mean the situation is hopeless. This is why the illa is so important. This is why, even though this is an ayah, it's not a sentence. This is not the end of the sentence. The sentence will conclude with the 3rd ayah, and inshallah ta'ala we'll have some detailed discussion about the 3rd ayah after our break. Take 10 good minutes and live your life. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. اللهم اجعلنا من الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. آمين يا رب العالمين. ثم أما بعد. Once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. We've had some discussion about the human beings, every single human being being in some form of loss or another, and truly being in that form of loss or another. Now let's talk a little bit about the exception. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. With the exception of those who believed. الَّذِينَ is used in Arabic, and it's translated those who. But it's actually used for very specific groups of people. So in other words, it is not, in the eyes of Allah, these people aren't just anyone, they are special. You see, if you wanted to say they're just anybody who believed, it's illa man amana. That would have been the word man, not alladhina. Alladhina suggests that they are very specific and special to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, it suggests that it's not easy to become part of this group. It takes a serious effort to be part of this exception. Now you guys know already, whenever you have a rule and then you have an exception, what is more in number? The people or the category that belongs to the rule, or the category that belongs to the exception? The category that belongs to the rule is more in number, the exception is always small in number. If the exception was larger in number, that would become the rule. So by definition, exceptions are very small minorities, right? So this ayah is about a very small minority, may Allah make us from them. Okay, there's a very small minority of humanity that are able to live up to this. Now the first condition is الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, those who've believed. But Allah did not specify here believed in what. Did they believe in Allah? Did they believe in the book? Did they believe in the angels? Did they believe in Judgment Day? Did they believe in all of those things? It is true when you don't mention any of them, then rhetorically it means you believe in all of them. In other words, if Allah just said they believed in Allah, then it would just be restricted to believing in Allah. And it wouldn't be talking about believing in the afterlife or believing in Judgment Day or believing in angels and books and all of this other stuff, right? But if you say they just believed, you just left it at that, at belief, then it encompasses everything. It's not limited to one thing, it actually includes everything. But the other really important principle that I alluded to, I kind of made reference to it before, but I'll reiterate it and I'll say it again now, is, you have to determine the meanings of words by where they're being used, by their context. The context here is every single human being is drowning in loss, except those who believed. In other words, what's the first thing they had to believe? That in fact they are in loss. That is the first sense of Iman. Faith, Iman, is not actually meant for someone who doesn't have a sense of urgency. Our religion is not casual. There are other religions or other philosophies in life that are casual. And for some people actually, even today, Islam is a casual thing. Like, yeah, I'm kind of Muslim, my parents are Muslim, we do Eid and stuff. I pray every once in a while, My parents take me to the masjid, it's really annoying, but I kind of go. It's a casual thing. It's not like super serious. And Allah is defining faith from the very beginning. This is meant for people who realize they don't have a lot of time left on this planet and they better get their act together, then they truly can believe. Okay, so the sense of urgency is tied directly to our faith. Again, for a lot of other people, their faith tradition or whatever faith they follow or however they choose to practice their religion is a very kind of casual sort of thing. It's not really something they seriously think about. It's certainly not something they have a sense of urgency towards. And I can tell you personally, the way that most of us were brought up, at least in my generation, right? My generation of youth that were brought up, even though I'm from a Muslim family and from a Muslim country and all of it, and I've lived long time in a Muslim country, we actually take our religion very casually. It's a very easy, relaxed thing. If you can pray, whatever. If you can't pray, it's no big deal. Really when you're going to take the religion most seriously is the month of Ramadan, probably, when you're really going to get your act together. And even then, it's not like you have to pray all of them, just show up for Taraweeh or something. We have this weird idea of what it means to engage with Islam. But the last thing that's associated with Islam is a sense of urgency, right? And sometimes people, they ask me kind of really, you would think they're just utterly ridiculous questions, like really, really ridiculous questions. But I don't get angry at the questions. I actually realize those questions are coming from people who never really got a correct education in Islam. So they ask these weird questions about Allah or weird questions about Jannah or Jahannam or, like superstitious type questions. And it makes me realize, subhanAllah, we don't really know what the Qur'an's actually saying as a people. Most of us don't really know. And it's so important for us to go back to the basics and be clear. What is it actually that we truly believe? Now, the second comment I want to make about belief. First, that it's tied with a sense of urgency. Right? You have to have conviction. And you have to believe that you don't have a lot of time left. But then the next thing, we have, you can divide belief, and this, if you're taking notes, you better write this down. Belief is 3 parts. What we believe in, you can break it up into 3 parts. There's belief in Allah, there's belief in the message, and there's belief in the afterlife. I'll say that again. There's belief in Allah, there's belief in the message, and there's belief in the afterlife. Now you're going to repeat that for me so I know you have it. Belief in Allah, belief in the message, and belief in afterlife. Basically, all of our beliefs boil down to these 3. We believe certain things about Allah. The message includes the angels, because they deliver the message. The message includes the book, which is the message itself. The message includes the messenger, who gave us the message. All of it is the message. Then the afterlife. The afterlife includes what's going to happen to us when we die, how are we going to be raised, what's going to happen on Judgment Day, how are people going to be judged, how do you earn forgiveness, what does hell look like, what does heaven look like. All of it is afterlife. What happens after this life, right? So Allah, the message, and the afterlife, right? Now each of these 3, if you look at any religion in the world, do they have some concept of God? Yes. Sure. Do they have their own concept of a message? Sure, they do. And do they have their own concept of an afterlife, heaven and hell, and what's going to happen after we die and all of it? Sure, there are people who believe in reincarnation. There are people who believe in heaven. There are people who believe in hell, their own version of it. There are people who believe in no heaven and no hell, there is no afterlife. Or we just become part of nature or something. We're all just one part of this one giant force of nature. Or people who believe when we come back, we're going to come back as human beings, or we're going to come back as a bird, or come back as a tree, or come back as something else, Like there are some variations of Hindu philosophy where you're not supposed to even tear off a leaf of anything because it might be your grandfather. Don't laugh. They seriously believe that, so they don't hurt anything because you don't know who's reincarnate. Who's reincarnate. My ancient ancestors might be, that fly that just flew by or whatever, So that they have those beliefs. Now the thing is, you and I, we believe in Allah. But saying the word Allah is not enough. Who is Allah? How do you describe Allah? What does He want from you? What is okay to say about Allah and what is not okay to say about Allah? What is okay to believe about Allah? What is not okay to believe about Allah? Because Allah is so beyond us, there's really no way for me to know comprehensively, fully, what I should call Him, what makes Him happy, what makes Him angry, how can I describe Him, what is the wrong thing to say about Him. I wouldn't know those things perfectly myself. I would have to be taught. In other words, people have some concept of God, some idea, like you could say your friends, some of your friends, they believe in God. I believe in God too, okay, good. But what exactly they believe about God may be different from you, isn't it? So when we say الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, then we're saying exactly what we believe about Allah will have to be given by Allah Himself. It can't come from me. I can have a general idea that there's a God, but who He is, what He wants from me, how do you describe Him, how do you have a relationship with Him, all of it's going to have to come from Him. That's part of Iman. Then the message. People who don't take this seriously, they think, well, we have a book, and they have a book, they have a Bible, or they have a Torah, or they have the Vedas, the Hindus have their Vedas, or whatever, or the Mormons have their, their book. And so we have our book, they believe in theirs, we believe in ours, and all books have some good things. No, actually, that's just casually believing in a book. But what's required of you and me is to actually seriously be convinced that this printed text that we have is actually the words of Allah exactly, specifically, without any alteration from a human being. We have to be convinced of this. We have to absolutely, I would even argue fanatically believe that this is God's word and it's perfect. You have to believe this. You have to believe this. And if that belief, that serious conviction isn't there, we have to build it. We have to build it. We have to come to that conclusion. I'll tell you personally why, another reason I'm interested in sharing this series with you is because I went through this journey. I wasn't so sure this is Allah's word. I wasn't. I mean, I was born and raised in a Muslim family, but my parents, they moved back, and I was doing college by myself in New York, and I had basically what you can call a religious crisis. It's like, why do we believe in this book? And I tried to read it for myself. I read the Yusuf Ali translation, and I got even more confused. May Allah reward him, but it's old, like Shakespearean English, which is not a lot of fun to read. And on top of that, the Quran is, if just in translation, is hard to understand anyway. So I was just left like, why do I even believe this stuff? How can anybody believe this stuff? What's it talking about? Then if you have friends around you who make fun of religion anyway, and then ask you all kinds of questions, so you guys actually believe in angels? Like, angels? They're flying around over here right now. There's 2 of them standing on your shoulder, either side. That's what you guys actually believe? Yeah, really. So am I punching an angel right now? Yeah. Oh, really? You believe that? Wow. And you start thinking to yourself, am I really that crazy? Do I really believe that? I'm not so sure anymore. And you start questioning yourself. You start questioning this book. It happened to me. And I bet it happens to a lot of people. It happens to a lot of, and when you start questioning yourself, you go to you think about going to your parents. At least you think about it. But you wouldn't go to your parents. Because if you go to your parents and say, why do we believe in the Quran? Yeah, if you're from Pakistan, you're going to get the Jamaat of your life. There's going to be a handprint on your face. What happened, bro? I don't know, just, it's a tattoo I'm trying, whatever, Because they don't, why they'll hit you so hard? Because they never asked that question. They never asked their parents that question. So they're expecting that you're never going to ask that question. And if you ask that question, it's the worst thing that could ever have happened. How could you ever ask that question? But you know what? We're living in a generation where everything is being questioned. So even if you haven't asked that question, maybe the question's in your head. Maybe it's in your head. It needs to be answered. We don't just believe in our heart. It's just from Allah, that's it, accepted. Allah gave us evidence. Allah doesn't just want us to change our whole life, because He's expecting me to change my whole life. One of my inspirations in life, Dr. Fadil Salih Hassan Rai, said this best. He said, when he was a young man, he had questions too. He lived in Iraq, and he was a really intelligent man, very philosophical guy. And he actually stopped believing in Islam. And he didn't tell anybody. He stopped believing in Islam inside himself. He never shared this with anyone. Obviously, he's living in an Arab society where if you say that, you're going to get in serious trouble, right? But he wrote about it 20 years later. At a crisis of faith, he says, I just didn't believe anymore. I didn't want to believe. And then it boiled down to one thing, basically. For him, it boiled down to one thing. Now listen to this one thing. He says, if I believe this book, then it's going to tell me to stop doing certain things, isn't it? It's going to put some rules on me. It's going to tell me certain things are haram. I can't do them. And it's going to manage, or it's going to control how I eat, how I sleep, what I can enjoy and what I can't enjoy. It'll put brakes on my life. And if I don't believe in this book, then what? I do whatever I want. Anything I want, I can have. There are no restrictions, there are no guidelines. The only thing is whatever I feel like doing. So I have to choose a life of restriction as opposed to a life of freedom. That's what it boils down to, isn't it? Now you tell me, for a young person who's just getting to enjoy life and enjoying a little bit of independence, what's far more tempting? A life of freedom, where you get to do whatever you want with no questions asked, or a life of restrictions? Clearly the choice is, it's not even a choice. And he then basically asked himself, this book better give me really good reasons for believing in it if I'm going to give up my life. That's how he put it. He almost felt like accepting Islam would be like giving up on life, giving up life. Because, I just want to be happy, I want to do whatever I want to do. If I want to give that life up and accept a life of restrictions, this book better give me some really, really good reasons. Now the thing of it is, he couldn't help himself but explore the book. And it's interesting, I was talking to Harun Bhai and a couple of other people about this too, people who accepted Islam. When they first kind of read the Quran and it intrigued them, something inside of them said, don't stop reading. Stop reading. Don't read anymore. I don't want to think about this. And they left it for a while. But they couldn't sleep. They couldn't, it pulled them back. And they started reading it again and again and again. And then a point came where they hated it. They just hated it. Why can't I let go of this book? It's so agitating. I don't want to hear about hell. I don't want to hear about hell. I don't want to do this. Why do I keep getting sucked in? There's something Allah put inside the human being, this fitrah, that just wants to get to the truth. But the thing is, to get to the truth, you have to fight a lot of laziness, and you have to fight a lot of your own, what you're used to. But for some people, that fire they have inside them to get to the truth, it even agitates them themselves. They lose sleep over it, but they can't help but get to it. And they just get, and for some other people, they're able to bury that fire inside of them and they're able to live a lie, no problem. They're able to accept that they're not in loss. See, it says human beings are in loss. Is that a fun reality? It's not a happy thought, is it? Isn't it so much easier to just pretend nothing's wrong and just chill out, dude? Just relax. Just relax. You're going to have friends like that. If you have an awakening, you're going to have friends like that. They'll just say, chill out. Calm, relax. Why are you so worked up about this? Why are you taking this so seriously? It is something to take seriously. Come on, man. Just live a little. Live a little. And it's so much easier to take that pacifier. To have real iman, to be really convinced, we have to have evidence. Because Allah is not asking us for something small. It's not something small. I don't diminish it. I don't undermine its value. You really have to give up a lot. As for a lot of you young people here, you're living, I'm not pretending, you're living in the US of A, baby. A lot of the time, most of the time, you're going to spend of your day is going to be away from the supervision of your parents, and you're going to do whatever you want. That's the fact of it. You have access to stuff on your mobile devices. You have friends at school, on campus. You can do things that your parents will have no idea about. Some of you are already up to those things. It's cool, I'm not judging. But you're living a free life. This series is really about, this surah is really about asking a question. Are you truly convinced that this book is the truth? If it is, then some uncomfortable changes may have to be made in your life. Or you might have to give up some luxuries. You might have to give up some of those habits that you really find enjoyable and you find pleasure in them, but they're no good for you. You might have to, the dictates of what is right and what is wrong may have to come from Allah, not from you. What do we truly believe about Allah? What do we truly believe about this message? Is this message actually for me? Is this the best advice for me? Is this really what I should be doing? As opposed to what I want to be doing? There's going to be conflict, guys. Everybody here, listen up. There's going to be times where you really want to do something and Allah is telling you something the exact opposite. And it's not easy to listen to Allah's word at that time. It is not easy. I'm telling you, we're going to get to the ayat about temptation later on. It's not easy. Yusuf alayhi salam is a young man, unmarried, teenager. Teenagers have certain feelings towards the opposite gender. There's a beautiful woman in front of him. She locks the door. She says, you can do whatever you want. Come here. She calls him. Nobody's going to find out. He's put in that position. لَوْلَا أَرَّأَ بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ. Had he not seen the evidence from his master, had he not truly believed, irrefutable proof, this is wrong. At that time, the raging hormones, the desire, the temptation can take over your mind and you don't know what you're doing, but even then you are not excused. Even then the truth is still the truth. And this young man was able to hold his own. And that's why he became a hero in Islam. That's why his story is recorded. You would think, why would that kind of a story be recorded in the Quran? Because that situation will happen over and over and over again. And young people will need to seek inspiration from someone who saved himself. He saved himself. Nobody could have found out. But he still saved himself. And he chose prison over that. Can you imagine? Either have your way with a beautiful woman or go to jail. And he preferred jail. That's not an easy choice. That's the choice. You would say that's the choice of an insane person. But you know what? Your level of faith has to reach levels of insanity to really accept this. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. This absolute conviction. What Allah wants for me is better. And what I think I want for myself is no good. There's nothing compared to what Allah wants for me. That's conviction. That's practical faith. It's not just some ideas we're going to study philosophically. Practically, what does Iman mean? What does it mean for you and me? What choices are we going to make? That's believing in the message. Then believing in the afterlife. 3 parts of faith, right? Believing in Allah, believing in the message, and believing in the afterlife. What does it actually mean to believe in the afterlife? You know, guys, let me give you a practical view of what does it mean to believe in the afterlife. You guys, you're in school and there are certain consequences to certain behaviors. If you have an exam and you're not ready, and you have 24 hours before the exam, what are you going to be doing? You're going to be studying. Then you find a guy who's not studying. 24 hours before the exam, he's not ready and he's still not studying. What could possibly be going on in his head? I want to understand. What could possibly be going on in his head? One possibility, the guy's given up already. He doesn't care anymore. 2, not only has he given up, 2, he doesn't really see the importance in passing this test. He thinks there's another test. I'll just take the semester over again. My parents will pay for it. They pay tuition every time. That's fine, it's cool. There's always next semester. And next semester I'll try to Google an easier professor. Go with that one. Right? Meaning there are people who don't make the right decision because they have no sense of consequence. But if your survival depends on something, if your survival depends on you making it to work on time, you don't have enough money for food, your boss says, you are late 5 minutes, you're fired. Are you going to make it to work on time? Are you going to do everything you can to make it to work on time? Because now it's survival mode, isn't it? It depends how badly you want it. It depends how badly you need it. The akhirah is serious business. There are two questions. How badly does someone want to be on the good side of Allah? How badly do you want Allah to be happy with you, to reward you, to give you the gifts of heaven? And how badly do you not want to burn? How badly do you not want to be punished? Those are the two questions. And actually the first question is, how badly do you not want to be punished? How scared of the punishment are you? And then the second question is, how motivated to be rewarded are you? Those are the two questions. If those questions are real to you, then there's going to be a different kind of motivation in you. If those questions are just stories to you, they're just stories. Because for a lot of people who believe in religion nowadays, those are just stories. They have cartoons about hell, don't they? They have movies about hell. They have movies about your protagonist going into hell, fighting some demons, and coming back out of hell. Like it's a joke. There are video games about, certain characters that are actually from hell. They're pretty cool characters. A lot of fun to play with, especially in some fighting games. Right? They're on fire and stuff. There's music made about hell. Highway to Hell. Flaming Skulls. Right? Pictures drawn of it. Art done of it. It's like a joke. It's literally like a joke. There are Halloween parties where people disguise their home, making it look like hell, and dress like devils and pitchforks and stuff. It's a joke to them. Whether you joke about it or not, whether you take it seriously or not, the Qur'an's stance on this is hell is real. And it's not just some place where heavy metal music is playing and a bunch of people holding pitchforks and rocking on with the devil or whatever. Hell is something far more serious and far more graphic. You know that the Bible and the Torah, they don't nearly have as graphic a description of hellfire as the Qur'an does. The Qur'an is extremely graphic in describing hellfire. Extremely, extremely graphic. Like there are some surahs where you literally have to say the following has disturbing images. The following surah will have disturbing images. Boiled water being poured onto people's faces and flesh being roasted and recovered again and skin being peeled off. Ugh. It's graphic. Now the question, why would Allah talk like that? Why would He describe hell like that? Because He wants you to be so disturbed by it that you feel a sense of urgency that you don't want to be in it. It is a gift of Allah that He gave us the graphic description of hell, that we don't have to see it, that we can hear these words and take them seriously enough. If there's one thing you walk away with when you read the Qur'an, is hell is no longer a light matter. It's no longer a joking matter. You cannot take it casually. You really have to believe. Then there's the other side, heaven. Other religions may have this fuzzy concept of heaven where you're this kind of like off-white soul kind of thing that's floating around, playing a harpoon or something. Not a harpoon, a harp. Harpoon's the thing you wail with. But anyway, you're playing a harp and you're like kind of, you've got the spiritual existence. Qur'an's picture of heaven is a party, man. It's waterfalls and it's cliffs and it's all kinds of roasted meat, barbecue being served with different kinds of birds that you haven't tasted before. It ain't just chicken and duck. It's got some other stuff going on. وَلَحْمَ طَيْرٍ مِمَّا يَشْتَهُونَ. The flesh of bird from the kinds of stuff they really, really want. In other words, literally a picture of the stuff comes out and you look at it like, oh. Like there's that being described. You hanging out with your friends, asking questions, chilling, dressing up, getting married. وَكَذَلِكَ وَزَوَّجْنَاهُمْ بِحُورٍ عِينٍ. Marriage parties are taking place and you're attending these wedding ceremonies. Drinks are being served. Servants are walking around, sir, any more drink? Sir, any more drink? There are people that are literally valets in Jannah. They walk around, their job is just to serve you drinks and bring you more and more and more. You're chilling under a tree and the branches are coming down and giving you fruit. And it's not like creepy like Lord of the Rings style trees that are like beautiful trees with gorgeous fruit up top. And it just descends and drops the fruit in the palm of your hand and goes back up. You just have to look at it and that's enough for you to place the order. You don't actually have to say anything with your mouth. Not these kinds of rugs, like really gorgeous rugs. Like this is nothing compared to the rugs of Jannah. You just lie down in them and you got pillows on the rugs, and they're at the edge of a waterfall, and just kicking it. You don't normally put rugs at the edge of a waterfall because they get wet or bugs, but there are no bugs and things don't get wet in Jannah. It's all good. You got rivers flowing. I want to see this river of honey business. River of honey and milk. River of honey and milk. Now that sounds a little goopy, but I like to see. I still want to see. There's this elaborate description of Jannah in the Quran. Ghuraf, lofty mansions, high ceiling rooms, super elevated mattress beds. When you lie down on your bed, you feel like you're on top of a cliff, with a view. It's nuts. It's crazy stuff. And then meeting Allah. And who should say salam first? The elder or the younger? Huh? The younger. Who should say salam? The one who comes in or the one who's already sitting there? The one who comes in. Who should say salam first? Your parents or you? You, not your parents. You. In other words, who should say salam first? The teacher or the students? The students. You try to do salam first, right? Quran says, Salamun qawlan min Rabbir Rahim. Allah will initiate salam to you. Allah will say salam to you. What? That'll happen? Allah will serve drink to you. وَسَقَاهُمْ رَبُّهُمْ شَرَابًا طَهُورًا. Allah will serve drink for you to drink. Subhanallah. Like the description of Jannah is incredible. It's incredible. And we have to read that description and want it. We have to read that description and want it. And then people have such a shallow understanding of what Jannah is going to be like. They're like, well, I already have a pretty good mattress. And we have a swimming pool already, so I don't really, waterfall, that's okay. And I live in Dallas, so we have amazing views. Both Jahannam and Jannah. This is Akhirah, guys. We have to believe in depth what is being offered. What is being offered. We have to keep your eyes on the prize, as they say, right? We have to want it. But this surah is actually not about wanting Jannah. This surah is about not wanting Jahannam. Don't be in loss. You're already losing time here. Don't lose in the Akhirah. Don't lose that. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Then وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. What is the proof that you truly believe? What is the proof that a team really wants to win the championship? They're practicing. What's the proof that you want to be the top ranking student in your class? You're studying all the time. What's the proof that somebody wants to get better, healthier? They're eating better. What's the proof that somebody's changed? Their behavior. Husband tells his wife, I love you, I want to spend all my time with you, I love you, I want to spend all my time with you. He still shows up at 11:30 at night, leaves at 4 in the morning. He keeps telling her, I love you, I want to spend all my time with you. She says, no, you don't love me. If you love me, and you said you want to spend all your time with me, you'd actually spend your time with me. In other words, when you make a claim, the only proof of that claim is your actions, isn't it? This is the only proof of your claim. Other words are just empty. I believe in Allah, I believe in the last day, I believe in the message, I believe this is the right thing, I believe that's haram, I believe that's halal. That's cool. That's really nice that you believe these things. But that means nothing if it's not manifested in your actions. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Prove it. Prove that you believe with your deeds. As-salih, really interesting word of the Arabic language. Saluha means, or salaha means to fix. To fix. Something is broken, salaha, to fix it. Ma la yasluhu tarkuhu aslah. They say something that can't be fixed, just leave it alone. It's a figure of speech in Arabic. So salaha, to fix something broken. The idea of amilu salihat, they do what fixes, literally. I'm not saying good deeds. Previously I translated, they do good deeds. But we're digging deeper now into the language. Salihat actually means the deeds that fix, deeds that correct. And when would that have to be said? When something is wrong, isn't it? Something is wrong and you're fixing it. Something is wrong with the way you spent your day and now you're fixing it. Something is wrong with the way you speak and you're fixing it. Something is wrong with the way you spend your money, you're fixing it. Something's wrong with the way you earn your money, you're fixing it. Something's wrong with the friends you have, you're fixing those. You're mending things and fixing things. In other words, the ayah is suggesting that human beings are never going to be perfect. We're always going to be doing the act of fixing and correcting. We're not perfect. Allah is not expecting you to be perfect. Allah is not expecting that you're no longer going to do sins anymore or no longer going to make mistakes anymore. That isn't the point. The point is you're going to be working at it. You're going to be trying to do better. You're going to identify what's wrong and try to fix it. An exercise of amilu salihat for you and myself, and a mental exercise is, what are the things I do in my day that are no good, that could be fixed? Is it my sleeping habits? Is it my addiction to music? Is it my addiction to the internet, to Facebook? What are some things that I can fix in myself that needs adjustment, that needs fixing? That's amilu salihat. Then the other interesting thing is a little bit technical, but I think you guys are smart enough, you'll understand. There are nouns and adjectives, right? Nouns and adjectives. Like if I say green house, then green is an adjective, house is the noun, right? As-salihat is actually an adjective. As-salihat is an adjective, but the noun isn't mentioned. We translate them as good deeds. What's the adjective in good deeds? What's the adjective, guys? Come on, English class. Good. Deeds is the noun. Interestingly, the word deeds isn't mentioned. The word deeds is not mentioned. Just the adjective is mentioned. Now, the adjective itself tells you a lot. The Arabic would have been وَعَمِلُوا الْأَعْمَالَ الصَّالِحَاتِ. وَعَمِلُوا الْأَعْمَالَ الصَّالِحَاتِ. That would have been translated, and they did good deeds. The word deeds would have been al-a'mal. It's not mentioned. But actually, as-salihah with a ta marbuta is expected. As-salihat, see the alif and ta in the ayah? Salihat, you prolong it. That actually is a special kind of plural in Arabic. That's the point I really wanted to make. The special kind of plural called jam'u qilla, a plural that means less. Meaning, Allah is saying they did the few good deeds. Not the many good deeds, but the few good deeds. Allah is saying that He's not asking a lot from you. By the way, the few, it's generally it's used when you have less than 10. Single digits. It's as though Allah is saying, I'm not asking a lot of you. You don't have to do a lot for me. There's not an endless amount of restrictions. It's just a handful of things you got to do. Here's a small bunch of things that are haram, stay away from them. Here's a small bunch of things you absolutely must do every day, like prayer. Just take care of them. Here's a few things you must take care of with your parents. Here's a few things you must take care of with Allah. That's it. Done. You're good. Amilu salihat. They do the few good things that fix, that constantly mend. So you're supposed to be mending your prayer all the time. You're supposed to be mending your relationship with your parents and your siblings all the time. Yes, your siblings too. You're supposed to be mending those relationships. You're going to get into fights. It'll happen. Maybe you're already in a fight. That's why you're sitting 4 people apart. Right? I don't want to sit next to her. Mother came with 2 daughters. Can I not sit next to her? You will sit next to your sister. No, I don't want to sit next to her. Fine, sit apart. Hate each other. Okay, good. Mom said it's okay. She meant it sarcastically. Stop fighting with each other. Fix that. Fix your relationships with your friends. Fix yourself up. Fix how you sleep. Fix how you wake up. Fix how you watch. Fix what you allow yourself to watch. Fix what you allow yourself to say. Maybe you're a lot more permissive with yourself and using foul language when nobody else is around. They're still here. They're still writing it down. Fix it. Work on yourself. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Then the last 2, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. After you do good deeds, you're trying to fix yourself. Life isn't just about you. This religion is not just about taking care of yourself. This religion inherently calls on you to care about others. You have to care about others. And it starts with your family. Allah did not put the weight of the world on your shoulders. You don't have to fix the world, but you have to take care of your family. You have to take care of your friends. Who are the people you know? Who are the people around you? I say this often, I'll say this again now. It's easy for me to talk to most of you because I don't know you guys. I don't know you personally, so it's easy for me to just talk. You think if I sat my mom down or my wife down or my cousin down, I could give them a talk for 2 hours and they'd sit there and listen? You must be crazy. You ever try talking to your brother, sister, or cousin? Give them a lecture? How does that work out for you? You can't. You can't. The hardest people to talk to about serious things is who? Family. Because the first thing they'll say to you is, what's wrong with you? Who are you? What happened to you? Oh, so you attended a program in Ramadan and you're a sheikh? Now I understand. Oh no, please, give me a lecture. Yes, yes. Oh, no. Let me bring a notebook. Let me take notes. Please, Your Holiness, speak. Teach. Preach, brother. Preach. Are they going to be sarcastic with you? Yes. Yes. And that's because you're not supposed to learn this stuff and go home and like, let me drop it now on you guys. That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to find a way to give advice that actually works with your family. لِكُلِّ مَقَامٍ مَقَالٍ. Every place has its own way of speaking. Every context has its own speech. The way I speak to you guys is not the way I speak to my parents. It's not the way I speak to my kids. It's not the way I speak to my wife. It's not the way I speak to my friends. It's different. Everybody has a different context. So you take a message in, you take this message, you want to give good advice, good counsel to your brother, your sister, your cousin, whoever, but you find the right way to do it, and that's why the word tawasi is so important. Wasiyah is advice that is given, that is heartfelt. That is heartfelt. In other words, you want to touch the emotions of someone, and I don't mean the emotions of agitation. And you don't want to annoy someone. You don't want to make someone angry. You want to soften someone's heart. So you have to have the intelligence to choose the right words in the right time. You know, وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابُ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. The Prophet ﷺ, Allah tells us that the Prophet will teach the people the book and he will also teach them wisdom. Wisdom is not just having knowledge, it's how do you use that knowledge, how do you speak about that knowledge correctly to the right people. You have to have the right sense. Maybe this is not the best time to bring something up. Maybe it's another time to bring something up. You know, somebody's stressed out or angry. Maybe it's not the right time to give them some advice. Maybe they're relaxed. It's a good opportunity. Maybe you can bring something up at that time. And if things are getting heated, maybe you can back off and come back later. Tawasaw. They keep trying over and over again. And the other beautiful meaning in tawasaw, how much time do I have? We're good? Okay, you make me nervous when you walk around. Okay. Tawasaw, the other beautiful thing in the word tawasaw, tafa'ul, Arabic students know, is mutual. In other words, you're giving advice and you're immediately ready to take advice. You're never in a position that's better than somebody else. You're giving advice to someone who doesn't pray. That doesn't mean you're better than them. They might give you advice about being kind. You're like, you don't even pray, you're going to tell me about being kind? No, actually you needed that advice. In other words, we're constantly ready to give advice, but we're also constantly ready to take advice. That is the meaning of tawasaw. The problem is there are some people who get addicted to giving advice, and then they have a really hard time taking advice, and when somebody does give them advice, they're like, excuse me? No. Who's got the mic plugged onto them? I do. You take my advice, I don't take your advice. Let's make sure how this works. Let's understand how this works, okay? That's not tawasaw. Tafa'ul means each other. Each other. They encourage each other and advise each other to the truth. That's the other interesting thing here. The truth. Is the truth comfortable? A lot of times it's not. What you said was wrong. You shouldn't have said it. Now you got to say this to your friend. Listen, I think you shouldn't have said that. Are you afraid of saying it to your friend? Sure. Because if you say it to your friend, he might not be your friend anymore. I don't know, I don't want to say anything. Their feelings might get hurt. They might not want to talk to me. There are people that are advising you, telling you, listen, you need to say something. You need to speak up. And you don't speak up because you're afraid. You have to give counsel in a sincere, loving, respectful way. That's tawasi, but you have to be truthful. Just out of your love for someone, you don't hide the truth. You don't hide the truth. I have cousins, for example, who are doing something wrong. They're doing something. I love them. They're my cousins. I have to tell them, look, I love you, and this is why I'm telling you what you're doing is wrong. that money you're making from the liquor store is wrong. This is not good for you, it's not good for the kids. I'm not telling you because I'm judging you or I'm better than you. You give me, and then they say, oh yeah, well I'm running a liquor store, but you think you're better than everybody else. You're right, I do think that sometimes. I should stop. I'm ready to listen to criticism. It's fine, take the criticism. This is tawasi bil haqq. You don't just go in trying to fix the world. You're constantly looking to fix yourself too, remember? And there are other people who see things in you that you don't see in yourself. There are things people know about me or notice about me, especially family and friends, people close to you. They notice things about you that you don't realize about yourself. So when they criticize, you should take it seriously. And not constantly say, well, you don't understand. You're always judging anyway. You have to have an open ear. Speak the truth and be ready to listen to the truth. Then there's bil haqq, the other meaning that I gave you. They counsel each other truthfully, sincerely. Truthfully and sincerely. You can add the word sincerely here. In other words, they not only are they advising each other to the right thing, the reason they do it is also truthful. I'm not doing it because it gives me a high that I love giving people advice, feeling a false sense of superiority. There are some people who have that disease. They love to give advice because it makes them feel better about themselves. They love critiquing things, commenting on things. There are people like that I meet all the time. Like I'm giving a talk and somebody comes to me, brother, that was a good speech. By the way, if you added these 3 points, it would have been better. Cool, thanks. Let me write those down. Same guy next week. That was a good speech. If you added these 4 more points, that would have been really cool. Then I notice a pattern. This guy, he loves to give me points because, for some people, the speech, the reminder, it's just a performance. I could have scored higher. This is not a performance. This is supposed to be a conversation. And it's supposed to be about advice. It's not supposed to be about scoring points. Or this one, it would have been like, awesome. People would have been like, takbir. Who cares? I'm just trying to get a point across. I'm not trying to wow you. It's just a conversation. It has to be sincere. It cannot be theatrics. It has to be truthful. It cannot be, if I say this, people are going to love it. It's going to be amazing. It's not a performance. Not among friends, not on stage, not when you're giving a khutbah, young men. One day you're going to be giving a khutbah. It's not going to be a performance. It's going to be a real, truthful conversation. And it's truthful not just about what other people need to hear, it's also advice to yourself. Rasulullah used to say, "Usikum wa nafsi bi taqwallahi azza wa jal." I counsel you and I counsel myself of the taqwa of Allah. Meaning, was he's giving a speech, he's giving it to them, but he's also giving it to himself. Somebody came up and asked me, hey, how do you know so much about what's going on in my life? I was like, actually, I know a lot about what's going on in my life, not your life. I'm talking to you about experiences that I have. Because I know maybe your experiences are similar to the ones I've had. You understand? You have to be able to relate with the people you're giving advice to. And not think of yourself as better than them. Not in a personal family situation, not in a public setting. Okay? So that's what وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. Then وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Now let me give you an easy example to remember وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. It's late at night, it's maybe 10:30 at night. You're in some rough neighborhood. I'm walking down the street. There's a bunch of teenage kids. They're a bit of a hoodlum gang. They're playing baseball in the middle of the street. And every time they hit the ball, it hits a car. And it's damaging people's property. It's damaging people's cars. Nobody's saying anything. You're walking by. Thought comes in your mind, man, these people are destroying people's property. I should say something. Guys, you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't just destroy people's cars. You can play somewhere else. Will you say it? Because if you say it, what might happen? Your head might become the next baseball. It's scary, isn't it? It requires a great deal of strength of character to speak the truth sometimes. You want to speak the truth, but it's scary. There'll be consequences. Similarly, you want to speak the truth with a family member. You want to correct them, but the thought crosses you, I can't say anything. Come on, they're going to get so angry. They're going to get so mad at me. They're going to put me in my place. Remember last time what happened? This is what tawasaw bis sabr means. We have to encourage each other to stay strong. Sabr is not just patience, it's perseverance, staying constant. In other words, sometimes it's easy to speak the truth, and sometimes it's hard to speak the truth. Sometimes it's easy to hold on to your faith, sometimes it's hard to hold on to your faith. Sometimes it's easy to do good deeds, sometimes it's hard to do good deeds. Tawasi bis sabr means that we are constantly there to encourage each other to stick it through and stay constant, not go through phases and seasons, but to stick it through. And we need each other for that. I cannot stay constant, you cannot stay constant. We have ups and downs. But if we're together, we can encourage each other, and one of us falls, the other picks them up. Hey, come on. If you have a buddy system for prayer, for example, you guys should have one, by the way. If you have a buddy system where you call each other for salat. Hey man, Fajr, let's go. I met a group of brothers in North Carolina, they're really cool. In Raleigh, they wake each other up for Fajr, then they have one van, they all pick each other up and go to the masjid together. They have like a bus pickup for Fajr. And that just makes sure that everybody gets up. And sometimes one guy oversleeps. So they go to his house and start knocking like annoying. Okay, I'm coming. And then he gets up and he comes. So sometimes he has good days, he's up before everybody else, and sometimes he has a bad day, but that's okay. He has friends that can pick him up. He has friends that can watch it for him, right? This is tawasaw bis sabr. We encourage each other, we counsel each other to stay strong, to stay constant. Now this leads to another, and the final comment about tawasaw bis sabr. That means that if we want to save ourselves, because the ayah was about all human beings being in loss. All human beings are in loss, except those who truly believe and do good deeds, which is for themselves, but encourage each other to be patient and encourage each other to persevere and to survive and to stay strong. This last part is not about you, it's about others, isn't it? It's about your relationship with others and a cooperative relationship with others, which means Allah is telling us that you and I are not going to survive for Judgment Day unless we learn to work with each other. We need each other to survive. The beginning was every single human being is alone, and every single human being is in loss. It was about the singular, it wasn't about the plural. All of a sudden, not إِلَّا الَّذِي آمَنَ, except the one who believed. No, except those who believed. It switched over to the plural because we need to hold on to our faith together. We need each other for that. We need to encourage each other to do good deeds. We need to counsel each other to the truth. We need to strengthen each other and make each other stronger. We can't give up on each other. The Muslim community is suffering today because people give up on each other. People give up on, I don't like that masjid anymore, I don't want to go there. I give up on those people. That's tawasaw bis sabr? You give up on Muslims? Yeah, I don't like to talk to him. We had an argument. What? One argument is over? That's it? Where's tawasaw bis sabr? Where's tawasaw bil haqq? Where did it go? And by the way, you and I are supposed to have a sense of urgency to constantly want to work with each other, because if we don't, then we don't meet this last condition. And if you fall short of any one of these conditions, you go back to the exception, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ, human beings are in loss. What's the difference between and or? Do you know the difference? You have to do A and B and C and D. One teacher says you have to do A and B and C and D. The other teacher says you have to do A or B or C or D. What's the difference? In one of them, how many tasks do you have to do? 4. In the other one, how many tasks do you have to do? 1. The ayah says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا and عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ and تَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ and تَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Are these ands or ors? These are ands, which means you have to do all 4. You miss any one of them, you fail, you go back to loss. So it's not just about me believing and not just about me doing good deeds. I got to work with other people. I have to learn to cooperate with others. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And it literally begins with your own friends, your own family, your own friends, then within your community, then at a larger scale with other Islamic organizations. My organization needs to learn to work with other organizations, with other individuals. Our masjid needs to learn to work with the other masjid. Our community needs to learn to work with the board. The board member needs to learn to work with the other board member. They have to do tawasi bil sabr. They need to counsel each other to patience. They're going to test each other's patience. They're going to need it. Man, this one ayah is like the entire key to survival as a believer. There's one exception. It's incredible what it covers. The whole formula for people who are not going to miss out, not going to lose. So now that I've reached the end of it, I want to share with you one last rhetorical secret inside this surah, and that is the last ayah is all in the past tense. Amanu, they believed. Amilu, they did good deeds. Watawasaw, they counseled each other truthfully or to truth, and they counseled each other to patience. All of it is past tense. Past tense, all the way through. The question is why? Even when I translated, just to help you understand, I said, except those who believe, present tense, and do good deeds, present tense. But technically the language is not present tense, the language is past tense. Why is that? The reason for that is very powerful. No human being should actually think that they have survived this. The only people who survived this are people who are already dead. In other words, the people who are gone, you can look back and say they believed and did good deeds and did tawasi bil haqq and tawasi bil sabr. And until I die, I better be working on this, so that after I'm gone, it can be said of me that I did these things. If it was they do these things, then it would just be a matter of the present and you wouldn't concern yourself anymore. Now until the end of my life, I will work on this, so it can be said about my life that my life amounted to these four things. That my life amounted to these four things. I know I have a little bit more time, and maybe I'll take 5 more minutes, inshallah, and then I'll let you guys go early today. In this 5 minutes, I want to share with you how this surah applies to different people differently. The lessons of this surah are not all the same for everybody. For example, I'll start with myself. I'm in a public position. There are a lot of people that are watching a video or listening to a lecture, so I'm in a public position. My role in tawasi, especially the last 2 parts, tawasaw bil haqq, tawasaw bil sabr, my role is different because I'm in a public position. An imam's role is different. He has to engage with his community and give them advice. A mother's role is different. Why? Who does a mother have to give counsel to? Her children. Her children. Her sphere is different. A father's role is different. An employer's role is different. A governor's role is different. A student's role is different. A friend's role is different. Every one of us have to understand who are the people that we have influence over, that we can give some advice to, that we can give some counsel to. And that's where this advice applies. But even for myself as a public, relatively public figure, at the end of the day, the real tawasi bil haqq and tawasi bil sabr is not happening through a YouTube video or a TV video. That's not where it's happening. Because tawasaw bil sabr means it's mutual. I'm giving you advice and you are giving me advice. So that at the end of the day for me also happens with my close friends, my family, my immediate circle. The idea in this ayah is we can save all of humanity if we start worrying about the people around us. If everybody just started worrying about the people around them, the world would become a better place. The Muslims are 1/5 of the world's population. If we just took care of the few people around us, we'd cover the entire planet. We'd be fine. You understand? So the idea is we don't have to fix the whole world. Just just work on the people around you and yourself. That's all you have to work on. And inshallah ta'ala, you and I will fulfill the conditions of this beautiful surah. So that was our first look at these 4 conditions. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. In our next subsequent durus, we're going to have other passages from the Quran, we're still in section 1, that cover the same concept but in a different way. They highlight different things about this same reality. Inshallah, we'll further this conversation tomorrow. Thank you so very much for listening. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.